The morning mist rolled off Clearwater Lake, Minnesota, wrapping my grandfather's 1940s fishing cabin in a quiet that felt sacred. I'm Tom Hargrove, 52, a retired Navy engineer turned handyman, inherited this weathered cedar shingle retreat 3 years ago. Every weekend, I drive up from Minneapolis to restore its soul-sanding railings until my hands bled, replacing dock planks that creaked underfoot, the air thick with pine sap and old wood stain. It was peace, the kind I hadn't known since leaving the Navy. Then Lisa Thornton moved in 200 yards away and turned my sanctuary into a war zone. Picture this. I'm sipping coffee on my porch when Lisa, a 48-year-old real estate agent with $1 million McMansion, storms across my lawn in designer yoga pants, an exasperated cop trailing behind. She's pointing at my solar panels, shrieking about visual pollution and code violations, her manicured nails flashing like daggers. The officer scribbles notes while Lisa vibrates with self-righteous rage, standing on the very dock I could legally dismantle tomorrow, turning her waterfront palace into a $900,000 swamp view paperweight. What would you do if a power-hungry neighbor sicked the law on your family's legacy? Drop your state below. I bet half of you have faced your own Lisa. Trust me, this revenge was 20 years in the making. Lisa had fled Minneapolis suburbia for authentic lakeside living, building the gaudiest McMansion on the biggest lot, treating Clearwater Lake like her personal fiefdom. My wildflower meadow clashed with her manicured golf course lawn. My beat-up canoe looked pitiful next to her roaring motorboat that shattered the dawn at 6 a.m. My handmade birdhouses stood in stark contrast to her security cameras spying on everyone's property. Trouble started when I installed solar panels on my cabin, fully permitted, county-approved, electrician installed. I was proud, honoring my grandfather's love for the land. Lisa marched over in designer flip-flops the next day, declaring my panels an eyesore that tanked property values and violated HOA rules. I showed her my permits, explained my cabin predated her HOA by 60 years, and politely declined her demands. Her eyes turned to ice. "We'll see about that," she hissed. 2 weeks later, the county called about a complaint alleging unpermitted electrical work and fire hazards. Inspector Dan spent an hour checking every wire before shaking his head. "Perfect work, Tom. This complaint's frivolous." But Lisa wasn't done. She patrolled the lake in her motorboat, snapping photos of my cabin, whispering to neighbors at the marina about my hillbilly modifications, ruining the community. Most folks stayed quiet, retirees who'd earned their lakefront peace, terrified of Lisa's HOA reign. She'd demand deck reviews or cite native plant violations if anyone crossed her. I noticed her pattern, cornering elderly neighbors with her clipboard, muttering about market downturns, her real estate signs popping up after these chats. One evening, replacing a dock board, the smell of creosote and lake water sparking memories, I recalled my grandfather's words. "Tom, some folks' ignorance is expensive." He'd sold half the lake's lots in the 60s, but Lisa never asked about his dealings, assuming I was just a working-class guy she could bully. Her second attack hit my mailbox, a state environmental agency letter claiming my dock harmed protected wetlands, threatening 5-figure fines. Sipping coffee, I marveled at her nerve. She accused me of environmental damage while her motorboat roared like a chainsaw at dawn. My lawyer, Mike, was blunt. "This is harassment, Tom, but we can't ignore it." The state inspector, Emily, arrived with enough gear to analyze a moon rock, clearly annoyed at the spike complaint. After 3 hours of tests, she cleared my dock but dropped a bombshell. Lisa's own dock extended 15 feet into protected spawning waters, violating the very regulations she'd weaponized against me. I nearly choked on my coffee as Emily marched to Lisa's McMansion with violation notices. Lisa, in white capris, sputtered about professional installation and previous owner approval, but Emily's patient smile shut her down. I strolled over with my grandfather's 1952 dock permit, loud enough for Lisa to hear. Grandfathered in, fully compliant. Emily's verdict was music. My dock was legal, Lisa's was illegal, with 60 days to remove it or face fines. Neighbors peeked from windows, no longer cowed by Lisa's reign. That night, in the county records office under flickering fluorescence, I dug into HOA papers and easements. Lisa's confidence screamed profit motive. She wasn't just harassing me, she was pressuring sales. Her third attack came via her HOA lawyer, a cease and desist claiming I ran an illegal cabin rental, demanding $500 daily fines, retroactive 6 months $90,000 to bankrupt me. I'd only let Navy buddies crash occasionally, splitting grocery costs. Mike grinned. This is weak, but fighting costs money. They're betting you'll fold. My Navy training kicked in to just defend, find their weakness. I discovered Lisa's unlicensed Airbnb in her basement, charging $150 nightly with professional listings and 47 five-star reviews. While she accused me of commercial activity, she was running a hotel, violating the same covenants. I filed a zoning complaint with photos, screenshots, and guest reviews exposing her hypocrisy. Lisa's fourth attack targeted my screened porch, alleging unpermitted structural violations with doctored photos. Dan, the inspector, apologized. She tried bribing me with a free weekend at her lake house to cite you. He revealed Lisa's systematic harassment across 3 counties, targeting elderly residents to force below-market sales. She'd made $200,000 per flip, a calculated real estate scam. I documented everything: complaints, forged permits, trespassing photos like a military operation. Then, in the records office, I found gold. A 1962 Marina Development Authority folder in my grandfather's handwriting. He'd retained regulatory control over all lakefront structures, docks, boat lifts, everything transferred to me upon his death. Lisa had been forging his signature on her dock permits, including one dated 6 months after his funeral, a felony fraud. With Mike, retiree Ellen, and veteran George, we planned Lisa's downfall. At the HOA meeting she'd called to vilify me, I presented the 1962 documents and her forged permits. The room gasped as Lisa's face drained of color. These are federal documents, I said. Felony fraud. Ellen and George shared their harassment stories, sparking a resident revolt. Officer Martinez advised Lisa to stay silent amid criminal investigations. She fled, her heels clicking desperately. Within 48 hours, her BMW and a moving truck vanished. Her McMansion sold at a 30% loss. She pleaded guilty to document and mail fraud, losing her real estate license and paying $75,000 in fines. The lake healed. I hosted a barbecue, grilled burgers mingling with pine air and laughter. Ellen revealed Lisa's pressure to sell. George detailed her complaints about his flagpole. Widow Mrs. Carter admitted Lisa's critiques drove her to consider assisted living. I established a fair permit system and the Clearwater Conservation Initiative, funding habitat restoration. Property values soared. The Henderson place sold 15% above Lisa's price to a delighted couple. George led a democratic HOA, Ellen organized resident advocacy, and I taught property rights workshops. 6 months later, the Hendersons wrote from Arizona, thanking me for exposing Lisa's terror. Tonight, on my dock, loons calling across the water my grandfather protected, I savor Lisa's self-destruction. She called the cops on my cabin. Unaware, I held the foundation of her empire. Got your own HOA horror story? Share it below with your state. Next week, I'll tell how another neighbor learned property law the hard way. Trust me, the audacity will shock you.